welcome back to my channel. So today's video is going to be me doing a little 2023 book review and also just kind of show you some of my favorite books of all time because this is my first video. So not first video, but one of my first videos and my first video talking about books. So I just thought it was appropriate because I do love to read and I think I would like to make more videos about reading, and it's one of my favorite hobbies. I can literally sit and read a book for hours and just like do it in one sitting. I think I'm going to start with my favorite books of all time and then do the like 2023 book review, but I have this huge stack of books, and for reference, I do read some of my books on like my iPad and my phone, and I don't think I'm gonna like do all those because we would be here for a really long time if I did every single book I read, but I'm gonna do the like standout ones, and most of them are hardcovers because I like, not hardcovers, but paperbacks because I like to have books physically in front of me. And then I have a few that aren't here that I'll probably talk about. And yeah, we're just gonna get right into it. First one I'm gonna talk about is Normal People by Sally Rooney. If anyone ever wants to get into reading and they like message me about it, or like one of my friends asks me, I will always recommend this book. Sally Rooney is literally one of the best authors. Oh, it's just so good, and they made a show on Hulu that I watched in like high school, and yeah, just really good. It's like a great book to read, I think, as a young adult, especially if you've been in like a relationship that had like its ups and downs, or like in a toxic type of situation, because I think this is one of those like romance books that actually shows the realities of like a relationship, or like even just being in love with someone you're not in a relationship with and all that. It's about a boy and a girl in Ireland. The girl is like an introvert, she's shy, she gets like made fun of and bullied at school, and she has money, and her the boy in the book, his mom is like the housekeeper for this girl, and they go to school together, and he's part of like a popular crowd that like bullies her, and eventually they form a friendship. It just goes over like their life over a series of years, and like they go to college and they reconnect, and like it's an on and off thing. It's just a really good book, and I would recommend it. It's my #1 book to recommend to people. It starts off pretty slow, but when you get into it, oof, it's so good. Another favorite of mine, which if I had to like rank it, I think I would put it as #1. And I think when I didn't, like right after I read it, I probably would have rated it lower. But the fact that I read it over a year ago and it still like sits with me, and every time someone even brings it up, or like even if I go to a bookstore or I see it on my bookshelf and I see it, I literally get goosebumps like even thinking about it. And I feel like you're gonna know what book this is, but A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara, I think that's how you pronounce it. I like never know how to express to people how good this book is in words. Everything I see about it, like before I read it, was like trauma. It's a lot, like don't read it if you have a lot of trauma, and there's like a million trigger warnings for the book. But I think that's honestly what made me like it so much, is because it's the one, just like the Normal People, it's like fiction, but it feels so real and it makes you feel things. And yeah, I don't recommend this book to people that don't handle trauma well, I guess. I probably wouldn't recommend it because it is a lot emotionally. And the crazy thing is, I read the whole book through and I got to the last chapter and was sobbing my eyes out uncontrollably. I was like, everyone said I was gonna cry, and I haven't cried yet, but I got to that last chapter and I was sobbing, and I was thinking about it for days after. It follows like these 4 classmates like broke in New York, and like how they all have these different issues in life, and they kind of like come together because of those issues. And then like the character that the whole book is centered around has gone through so much, and it kind of just shows how like trauma impacts our identity and who we are, and like how we love, how we feel, and stuff like that. And it's so good, and it just like explores like the bond of like boyhood. I would give A Little Life 5 out of 5. Anyone who knows me knows that. Normal People, I'd also give a 5 out of 5. And then the last one that I will be doing is one of my favorites, The Silent Patient by Alex I'm terrible at pronouncing things. Michaelides? I don't know. This book is what got me into psychological thrillers. It is so good. The twist is insane. And I still to this day don't think I've read another psychological thriller with such a good twist in it that actually like had me like uncomfortable. And I think this is one of the ones that I also read in one sitting. It's just so good. I also recommend this one to people that want a book that will like suck them in. I'd probably give this like 4.3 stars. I just like still to this day think about how it twisted and how unexpected it was, because usually when I read psychological thrillers I feel like I can predict what's gonna happen, and in this one I did not see it coming at all. This book did not disappoint. The twist was so good. Main character Alicia, she goes to a psych ward because she shot her husband in the face 5 times or something. She refuses to talk to anyone, and it turns into like this whole mystery because she won't speak, so she hasn't like confessed to anything, but the whole thing is she can't speak. She's just silent, aka the silent patient. And she has a criminal psychotherapist is what he's described as on the back, and he sits down and talks with her, and he's like determined to get her to talk, and basically it unravels this whole mystery. And the twist, I'm not gonna say anything because I don't want to ruin it for anyone, but if you want a really good book that will like make you a little scared and yeah, read this one because it's so good. Let's do this now because I read the Shatter Me series this year, which if you know me at all, I am not good with series for some reasons. Like I can sit and read a standalone book, but a series really has to get my attention for me to be able to like sit and like read the whole thing in like one consecutive period of time. And this is the first time I think I've read this long of a series since I was in like middle school or high school. But yeah, it's the Shatter Me series. These are so out of order. But it follows a girl named Juliet, in this like dystopian world where she is in a asylum because she has the power to kill anyone she touches, and she got accused of killing a little boy, I think, or a little girl or something, and goes to this asylum. And keep in mind, in the world there's other people with powers, but it's not like well known, and if they are, they're sent to these asylums if they have powers. It's kind of like a romance. There's some romance in there. There's a lot of drama. There's Divergent vibes a little bit, but like not. And really good. I like loved sci-fi growing up, so I think it was definitely a good I would say it was more sci-fi and not fantasy. My favorite like movies growing up were Hunger Games and Divergent, so really like this. If you know Sarah J. Maas, you know A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I have been struggling to finish because I started it like maybe my junior year of high school, before it was popular, and I had no idea what this book was about. And now it's like one of the most popular books on TikTok right now. But I started it like the summer of like my junior year or something. I think right after it came out, maybe. I don't know. But I started it. The first book I thought was so good. Read it in one like trip. I was on a trip somewhere and I read it before the end of the trip. And then I got into the second book. I think I read fine. And then the third book got halfway through. And that was, I think earlier this year, I finally read the third book, or I got through half of it, and someone told me that the book reminded them of bestiality, and I got turned off from the book and I could not read it anymore. So there's that. So I have the series. I will finish it one day, but I think I need to get that thought out of my head before I can continue, and I also probably need to start over because I read the first book years ago. But I do love Sarah J. Maas. She's really good at writing stories, and she's very creative, and so I read her Throne of Glass series. I haven't read Assassin's Blade. I haven't read half of the series, honestly, but I read the first 3 this past semester. and I just got so busy with school I couldn't continue, and then by the time I was done, I like kind of just was not feeling it anymore. But I was powering through these. I think I read each of these in a few days. But it follows a girl who was born into like a wealthy royal family, and then her parents get murdered, and she gets raised by an assassin, one of like the best assassins in the world, I think, or something. And she becomes an assassin, and she basically is in prison, and then gets recruited by the king to fight a bunch of other assassins to be his personal assassin. And of course, there's a little bit of romance, a lot of action. I like Sarah J. Maas because it's so much fantasy and creativity and like adventure, where instead of like just straight romance. But I obviously have a lot of books to finish, so one day I'll get there. Donna Tartt's The Secret History, and this might be a little bit controversial because this book is so popular. When I say popular, I mean popular on like TikTok and Pinterest. And I'm not gonna lie, I read this book on a cruise with my boyfriend this summer, and I did not like it. And I don't know if it's because I just couldn't get into it, that's why I didn't like it. Maybe I need to like sit down and actually try to read it, but it was a bit too much for me, a little bit confusing. I don't get it because it's like a psychological thriller, and I love psychological thrillers, but I could not get into it. I don't know if it was just like too slow burn, but maybe I'll try it again and I'll give it another chance now that I can actually sit and read it and focus on it. It's on to more psychological thrillers, and these books I literally read in the past week because they were so good, and I went to Barnes & Noble last week and I went crazy, so yeah. First we have The Whisper Man by Alex North. This one was kind of scary, but it was also like, I did kind of see like the twist coming. It didn't feel like it was a big twist. You kind of just could, as it went on, you were starting to figure out things. But it was good. I wouldn't say it was one of the best, but it was scary, I would say. Like, I think I was reading it, and every time someone would say something to me, or like I heard a noise, I would jump because I was like freaked out. But it basically follows this guy who's an author, and his wife passes away, and he's raising a son. And they move to a new town, and it's in the UK, and they move to a new town, and they move into this like weird looking house, and then the other perspective is a detective who is retired. No, he's not retired. He was the lead of a case 20 years prior of the Whisper Man, which was a guy who murdered little boys, and he would kidnap them by like whispering at them. And the whole book follows the author and his son, and the son like has like imaginary friends and like hears things, and it essentially is this little boy starting to hear whispering and speaking to someone that isn't there, and his dad doesn't believe him, and it's this whole thing. And yeah, so then they basically have to figure out who's doing this crime again. And honestly, now that I say the plot, I think it was actually better than what I thought. So yeah, it wasn't bad. It was pretty good. The next is The Housemaid and the Housemaid's Secret by Frida McFadden, and I just got into her books. I'm listening to Never Lie by Frida McFadden right now on audiobook, and it's actually really good. This is also, it was good. It was really good, but I low-key did figure out the twist early on for The Housemaid. It felt almost a little bit too predictable, but the book was still good because it wasn't just one big twist. It was like a bunch of little things. And it's essentially this housemaid who starts working for a wealthy family, a husband, a wife, and their daughter. The daughter is like really weird. The mom, the wife, hires the housemaid, and the wife ends up just being crazy, and she's on a bunch of psychological drugs and has some issues, and she's just known in her town for being like the crazy rich wife, you know, housemaid stays in the attic upstairs. And it's just a really interesting story. There's a groundskeeper. The groundskeeper only speaks Italian and warns the housemaid from the very first day she starts working here, like, it's dangerous. And essentially it's the housemaid figuring out why it's dangerous. And yeah, the end's really good book. And then The Housemaid's Secret is a continuum. Is that a word? Of The Housemaid. But I can't tell you what this one is about. I think you have to read that one first, because if I tell you what this one is about, it'll kind of throw you off. I think that's all. So out of the, I don't know how many books I read this year. I have a Goodreads, but I'm terrible at keeping track. I always forget to add books, so I don't even think this is all, but I honestly can't think of anything else. And right now I'm about to read The Secret Life of Bees, which is another like really good, well-known book. And I want to get into Stephen King, so I started reading Misery. And yeah, I think that's all. I hope you enjoyed my book review, and I want to make more book videos in the future, so if you want to give me some recommendations, because I don't know what I should do. If you want to like, comment, and subscribe on this video, give me some suggestions for other things I should do. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Thank you for watching.